The Tigers and Delaware. The Tigers win. The Tiger Football Report starts now, brought to you by the Green Turtle. Welcome to another edition of the Tiger Football Report. I'm your host, Spiro Marikas, along with the head coach of the Tigers, Rob Ambrose. And Coach, the Tigers taking on the Delaware Blue Hens this past weekend in an important game in many aspects, more so that you needed that game to continue your quest to get to the FCS playoffs. A loss would really put you behind the eight ball. But your team came out. You really dominated the game. The scoreboard doesn't show it. Turnovers, which you have been great on all season long, but this year you lose the turnover battle but still win the game.
Yeah, it was really kind of frustrating. There's a good rhythm to this game, offensively, defensively, and with special teams, and 3 turnovers really slowed our roll, so to speak. 2 of the 3 were moving to the plus side of the field on big-ish plays, but you get guys that are not always having the ball in their hand, guys that are stepping up into new and bigger roles, and understand that the pressure of those circumstances, you're going to get more hits. You got to have better ball security and lessons learned. It's a good thing we get to teach those lessons with a win in our back pocket.
Certainly is. Now, somebody who had the game of their life was Caleb Smith. And his father, Rodney, who's in the Towson Hall of Fame as a defensive lineman for the Tigers, had to be one proud papa on Saturday afternoon. 200 yards receiving. First time in several years that the Tigers had 200 yards receiving. This is a kid that you've talked all year long, hasn't played a lot of football in his life, and is still learning.
Still learning. That at one point in time he was probably the 5th X on the depth chart, 4th or 5th X. And not because he didn't have a skill set, but because he's still learning. And he's still learning through the season, and one guy goes down and his role improves a little bit, another guy goes down and he gets a little more run, and now we're at the point where he's the guy. And had a long conversation about what kind of game plan we were putting in versus what kind of scheme Delaware was running. And he was going to have a big game for us to win. And we were going to put him in positions to be successful, but he was going to have to make plays, and boy, did he.
Well, when you're that far down on the depth chart, and as you practice during the week, how much, when he was that far down on the depth, how much time did he have with Tom Flacco?
Not that much. It's really hard. I mean, you think about all the guys that Daniel Thompson, Jabari Allen, Shane Leatherberry, Rakowski, Street, Diego, like they add up. So you don't get it. But to these guys' credit, as his role kept increasing, he kept stealing more and more time after practice with Tom. Tom would want it, and Caleb would want it. So when we got into the Delaware week, we knew that this was going to have to happen, and these guys were full board. Like, they were kind of attached to the hip for most of the week during practice.
Another group that has to be commended is your offensive line. There were times where Tom could have had a full course meal back there with all the time he had to throw the football, allowing his receivers to get open. Tremendous job by the offensive line.
They really did. They blocked extremely well in the run and the pass. And I got to give, this doesn't happen very often. I don't have the opportunity to do it. The tackles end up going against pass rush guys, and it's a fight. And as we can say, you can win 9 out of 10 of those fights. It's against a great pass rush guy, and you lose one, and you got a bad day. They had a young man on their team that's an all-conference player, first-team all-conference returner as a nose guard. He's a flat-out stud, a dude. And Cole Tripko handled him. There's no other way to say it. He handled him, and he handled him basically alone for 4 quarters. And because of it, we could run the ball, we could pass the ball. Cole probably had his best game as an offensive lineman.
Edie Fayenrat had a nice game. I mean, the numbers aren't outstanding, but he scored 3 touchdowns and came up with some big runs.
He really did. Had to slow him down a little bit. He's a very excitable guy. He's in this role and is excited to be in this role, which means he's going to touch the ball a little bit more. But being a good tailback requires a little bit of knowledge and patience. You have to know your pace to the line, to the hole, read the defense, and then fast through the hole. And Yeedy has a habit of just going fast. And sometimes that doesn't always work out as well as it should. So once we slowed him down a little bit, he really got in a groove and played really well.
Adrian Feliz-Platt, I think, may have had his best game as a Tiger Saturday also.
I believe he did. He really, really did. AP's always had that skill set, but it was honing his focus and focus on the little things. And really, his little things were really, really good. He was great in pass protection. He was great in the field with a ball in his hand, made guys miss, and got some tough yards when we needed them.
On the defensive side, talking about guys who have fathers that played football, Kobe Tippett comes up with his 5th interception of the year. That's the most by a Tiger, believe it or not, since Brian Fitzpatrick in 2003.
Whoa.
So it's been 16 years since the Tiger with 5 interceptions. How about Kobe and his play?
Wow. His football intelligence, his football knowledge, he's been around the game since he was a child, clearly, and that there's something to be said for that. You know, if you're around books all the time, you're going to, by osmosis, you're just going to get some of this stuff. He understands what offenses are trying to do based on his experience of being a two-way player growing up, and that he knows what wideouts are trying to do, how DBs should be trying to defend them, big picture offensive scheme, and he knows timing. Like, there's lots of guys that go run and chase dudes and are in their hip pocket, but they don't understand the timing of a play and when the ball should be coming near them. Kobe does, and he's getting better every year, but he's putting all those things together. He's having one really, really good season.
All right, so for the 7th time in the last 9 meetings between these two schools, the game ended up 7 points or less as the Tigers win 31-24. Every year is a battle with Delaware. So that'll do it for this edition of the Tiger Football Report. Tune in later on this week when the coach and I talk about the Tigers matchup with the Sea Wolves of Stony Brook coming up this Saturday. So for the head coach of the Tigers, Rob Ambrose, I'm Spiro Maurikas. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, go Tigers.